Hi everyone, welcome to Happy to See Me. I'm Erika Casupanan. Okay, this week. So this is going to give away how far in advance I pre-record these, but something I was happy to see this week that I had to share. I got to meet Abraham from my season of Survivor. Abraham was voted out in the first episode. And what's wild is he and I have never met in person before. Even though we were on the same show and we've been in touch for months, he's just been a pal. He came to Toronto and we were able to meet up, have a lunch, and just talk for hours. It's just amazing to me that I can have this experience. I've never met this person. It's been 2 years since we filmed the show, but we're always going to be bonded by the shared experience, and he is awesome. Abraham is the co-host of the Survivor Now podcast. They do all of these recaps for the US Survivor and a bunch of the international seasons. They do post-show press. He's a magnetic personality, so do check out Abraham on the Survivor Now podcast. And Abraham, thank you for listening and thank you for coming to visit me. This episode I am interviewing Taylor Lindsay-Noel. And I will tell you, this is the first episode where I actually almost started to cry. Actually, no, my eyes were full of tears and I had to take a moment because she is such an inspiration. Taylor is a CEO, a motivational speaker, a disability advocate, and she is just awesome. She was a young gymnast that was working towards the Olympics, but then she had this devastating accident and now she is in a wheelchair. And she talks about the transition from becoming an athlete to now being someone who is a person with a disability. She talks about how she has overcome so many obstacles to be this successful CEO and break all of these barriers. And we talk about how she shared accessibility with a wider audience and this amazing TikTok following she's grown, focused on Toronto restaurants. Truly, she is awesome. You will fall in love with her. Before we get into it, if you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, review the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And if you haven't already, also please follow the podcast on Instagram at Happy to See Me Pod and subscribe on YouTube. I'm also booking guests for the next round of episodes. I've had so much fun with the first 10 guests I've had. But if you have an idea for who we should have on the show next, let me know. It can be a Survivor person, a reality TV person, or somebody who you just find inspirational or you think I would enjoy talking to. All right, now that all of the housekeeping is out of the way, let's get into it. Here is Taylor Lindsay-Noel. I hope you enjoy it. Taylor, welcome to my podcast. I've been a fan of yours for a while, so it's honestly such an honor to have you here.
That is crazy that you say that because I am a fan of yours. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
It's so surreal. I think I forget that sometimes I'm a person who is on TV because I feel like I just went back to my life. I see people on TV, I see people on social media, and I think, why don't I shoot my shot and see if I can get Taylor on the podcast? And I'm so happy that you said yes.
So literally as the email came in, it was so surreal because my cousin and I are Survivor super fans. Like, he's even more of a fanatic than I am. And we had planned to go to that event with Bryce and Wendell. And we were talking about it for weeks. And I see the email come in from you. And I said, you will not believe the universe and how it's thinking right now. Like, the Survivor gods are speaking to me. So, and I did it truthfully. I knew you were Canadian, but I did not know you're from Toronto. So this is crazy. Small world, crazy coincidence.
I would have lost it if I had met you in person. Unfortunately, I couldn't go. I don't know if I told you. We actually have this in common. The day of that event, I froze my eggs. So I had my egg retrieval process. So now we have that in common too.
I saw that on your Instagram and I saw it afterwards. I was like, okay, good excuse to not, be out and about. I know what that process is like. I know that it is so much on your body. I don't think people talk about it enough. So I think that's amazing that you're sharing, at least in part of your journey, because more women need to know about it because the benefits are insane. Like, I literally, it's one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself.
And speaking of sharing, I feel like you are so open about sharing your life and your experiences. So for anybody who doesn't know you, can you tell the listeners a bit about who you are?
Of course. So me in a nutshell, I previously was a Canadian national gymnast, and it was like everything that I did. Like gymnastics was my entire world. Pretty much the only thing I loved outside of gymnastics was Survivor, funny enough. But I would compete for Canada and very much so was supposed to go to the Olympics in 2012. But I had a really bad gymnastics accident after my coach gaslit me to do a skill that's never been done before and lied about it and told me people have done it before. Long story short, the second time I tried it, I landed headfirst and broke my neck, which paralyzed me for life. So since then, my life has been a journey of going from being a super athlete to being a full-time paralyzed, disabled woman and just navigating what my career would look like, how I would reinvent myself. And that's kind of where I guess the start of my journey and story and everything that came after that was because of that.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with me. And I feel like in all of what you do, you're so generous with sharing that story with so many people. So thank you on behalf of everybody because it's such an inspirational story. And how old were you when that happened?
I was only 14. I was a baby. I was like now looking back, I thought that, I was a big woman, but no, God, I was a child. And to know, and when I see 14-year-olds nowadays, I'm like, wow, I was so young. And this year, it'll be 15 years since my accident, and I would have spent half of my life now in a wheelchair, which is insane to me because time goes by so quickly. But yeah, I was only a 14 at the time.
Wow. See, that's something that really inspires me about you because I feel like having an accident like that for anybody, it's a loss that's hard to comprehend. But then you dealt with this grief when you were just a young teenager. How did you do it?
I applaud younger me so much because I think if it happened to me at this age, although I'm, older and wiser and all these things that you do become when you get older, I think the reality of it would have hit me way differently. I think being younger and a little bit more naive helped me in the sense that I was extremely optimistic. And I still am a very optimistic person, but I didn't understand the gravity of my situation being so young. But beyond that, I think I've always just been a really happy go lucky person. Anything that ever comes to me that's bad, I truly try to find the funny. I'm like dark humor. I try to find the funny in it. And also, like, okay, how can we make this a glass half full situation? And also, I have the best friends and family around me. They never treated me differently, which I think is like key for anyone who goes through trauma is to like surround yourself with people who will not let you wallow in what you're going through forever. You can be in it, but you can't stay in it because then that will kill you. So I think the combination of these factors are the reason why I am doing okay today.
Wow. I feel like that's really good advice for anybody who has a loved one that's going through a big life change like that. And I saw so many articles about you from that time. There was national news about this accident. And then I also saw that
Yeah.
you were this athlete and then this happened, but then you picked up and you started pursuing the arts and you started running for student council. And it seemed like the train was just continuing to go no matter what had happened to you. So, what was it that really drew you to poetry and expressing yourself that way?
Erika, you have done a deep dive. Wow, I am very impressed. This kind of reminds me of the guy that does Hot Ones. I don't know if you've ever watched that show on
Mm-hmm,
YouTube.
mm-hmm.
He interviews people, and he's just like so good at finding little tidbits.
Thank
So
you.
yeah. Anyways, I did join student council in high school, and I did become president by my last year. And I think what drove me to do that was because I had this opportunity to reinvent myself in a very strange way. I had always been so attached to the title of being an athlete. So when that was taken away from me, I was like, who the heck is Taylor, the person? And in order to find myself, I just kind of threw myself into as many social activities in high school as I could once I returned from physical rehab. And in doing that, I got to know myself and I really realized I love speaking. I love interacting with people and trying to help with social issues. And that led me to student council. So, and I've always been an athlete mentally as well. And that doesn't go away once you have an accident. And I just took that competitive nature and put that into running for student council. And I campaigned. I wish there was like some kind of TV, like MTV docuseries of my campaign at high school, because it was really like a movie. I made t-shirts for everyone, and anyone who would be willing to vote for me the day of the election, like they wore their t-shirts and their bracelets. And so the whole school was filled with like my face on election day. And I ended up winning. So it was really fun.
Do you still have the design for that t-shirt?
I do. I have it. I have it somewhere. Yeah, I have it in my closet. I still have it, which is crazy. It was a crazy time.
Okay, you need to make that as merch, because I would buy one. I feel like you'd have so many people who would happily wear your face on their t-shirt.
You know what? I probably will do something like that one day. I just was so inspired by, like, Napoleon Dynamite, like, vote for Pedro. Like, I was just like, this is going to be me. My face is going to be everywhere and we are going to win. Like, and I just had so much support around me. I did hear it was a close race, but I had so much support around me, and we were able to do a lot of really great things with the school that year. So yeah, it was a really great time. I had so much fun despite everything else that was going on in my life.
I really admire how you're still able to find the bright side and the positivity. And I feel like when it comes to how you were an athlete, that spirit of competitiveness, it lives in you. It doesn't matter what the packaging is. It's inside of you, and it's going to find a way to come out.
It literally never leaves you. It's still running rampant in me today. And it could be from anything from sport to gym to school to my businesses, like very competitive. And it gives me, I think, that little edge that you need to be successful.
So I want to ask you about the support that was around you, because I know that this was probably a big change for your family and your friends too. So how did your family respond to everything?
They were devastated. Like nobody could have predicted what happened to me. And I think what people discount a lot in grief journey is that grief does not just affect you. It affects every single person around you. What happened to me has affected my family, my friends for our entire lives. Like, even to this day, Christmas dinners for my family have to be at my house. Not because we want them to, which we do, which is fine. Love my family, but they have to be here because nobody else's house is accessible. My friends had to make significant adjustments in their lives in order to take into account how to make and navigate this world with me, and especially when this world can be so inaccessible. And so everything that happened to me happened to everyone, and it was very devastating, very hard for my friends and family to see me go through something like this. And I think also for my friends, us all being the same age and being so young, it showed them too that life is really, really fragile. And I think we all grew up significantly faster than we probably would have otherwise. But it also created a bond that is unbreakable. Like, we are such a strong friend group. My friends are like, God, I have to be friends with them because they have all of my secrets. I have all of theirs. But I truly love them. I love them so much. And they have gone above and beyond to make sure that I never was treated differently or seen as different. And they would ride with me till dawn. So I'm very grateful for my friends and family.
That's awesome. I feel like it's hard for people to maintain those friendships from high school, and to know that you've done it. I think that that's so cool. I also want to ask about your mom in particular, because I read so much about how your mom was an advocate for you. So what was the relationship with your mom like as you were adjusting to this new phase of your life?
My mom and I have always been really close because I'm an only child and she's a single mom. So just naturally, you kind of have this closer bond. We always did things together. But when you go through something like this, and her just being so protective of me and having her only child, her only daughter, go through something so devastating. It was like very traumatic for her. She lost 30 pounds like a month.
Wow.
She just due to stress. But I think after that month kicked in, her motherly, because she was like, she completely admits to being in a daze. Like she was doing everything, but she just like literally has no memory of the first month. If you ask her today, she barely remembers anything because of just the traumatic nature of everything. But my mom has been the biggest advocate for me through everything. Like I'm talking when rehab wanted me to get out earlier, she's like, my daughter is not leaving until she is well enough to leave. Like, don't you think that you're kicking her out? Like, it's not happening. We had to build a house while I was in rehab. She spent 19 months building a house for me from start to finish that was fully accessible when we didn't even have a house in the first place. Like she ground one would go every single day to a construction site, build a successful house, come back, sleep on a pull-out couch in my rehab room. Like this woman is insane in the best way possible. And her nickname is MB, which stands for Mama Bear, because if anything happens to her child, she will literally maul you like a mama bear and advocate for me till the world's end. So she is the most incredible, inspirational, feisty, no nonsense woman that I will likely ever come across. And I'm very, very grateful and lucky to call her my mom.
Wow. I have shivers. My eyes are filled with tears. Wow. MB sounds like she's the best.
She's the best. Yeah.
I'm so happy you had that type of support for you through all of this. I just cannot even imagine what was going through her mind or what was on her plate at that time. Oh my God.
No, she's honestly like anybody who meets her, you can just feel her energy. She's the kind of person when she walks into a room, you cannot help but notice her, like love her, hate her. Like she is authentically who she is. She is a strong Jamaican immigrant woman who has come over here, made a life for herself, and has done everything humanly possible to make sure that I am okay and more than okay. So I always say if there's someone who this accident was going to happen to, I feel like in a sense that it happened to me because I could handle it and the people around me would be there to lift me up. And she's like the main source of that. She's phenomenal. Yeah.
This is too much for me. This is too much. This is so beautiful. And I think about, okay, you and your unstoppable drive. I see where you get it now. It seems like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
She would never admit it, but we are literally one and the same. She was like, I don't know where you're coming from, but I'm like, I'm literally you. I'm literally you. Everything that I am is, pretty much a mirror of her. And so, yeah, it's directly rooted from my mother and her strength for sure.
It sounds like she gave you just the most amazing foundation. And then you took that, you left high school, you went to school, and then when did you start your business? Because I would love to talk about your company. You are also a CEO. So can you tell me about Cup of Tea and the story behind what it is?
Of course. So, yeah, I went to university at what's now called TMU, formerly Ryerson, and studied radio and television arts. Very much so wanted to be an entertainment reporter. And then after a couple of internships, I decided, going into a facility to be like a part of like a global news or something like that, would just not really fit with my lifestyle of having nurses and the unpredictable nature of news. So I started a podcast quite a few years ago now, where I would interview someone over a cup of tea. And naturally, I wanted a tea sponsor. And I reached out to one of the biggest companies in Canada. And I never heard back from them. And so, being a little bit petty and being competitive, I was like, okay, if you don't want to sponsor me, I'll just start my own tea company. And in that process is where Cup of Tea, luxury loose leaf teas came about. I started my company in 2018 and we've been in business for about 5 years now. And lots of crazy things have happened, like Oprah's favorite things list and being in the Oscar and Grammy gift bags. And most recently, we opened up a cafe. So it's been, I never, like, nobody grows up when they're 5 years old, like, I want to own a tea business when I'm older. But getting here makes so much sense for me in my journey.
What was it about tea that, so let me ask again. What was it about tea? Why was this a passion for you?
I've always grown up drinking tea. I don't know. I think it's because, like, being a Caribbean background, you're kind of told you cannot start your day without something hot in your stomach. So that was always what we did. Like, there was never a time when I didn't drink tea in the morning, even when I was a gymnast. And so that naturally was a part of my life. And then going into university, I had gained quite a bit of weight. And a big contributor of that was drinking extremely sugary drinks from Starbucks like 3 times a day, just being on campus, just consuming and consuming and consuming. And so I started finding healthier teas, and this was like one way for me to start to take my health back into control. And just knowing how diverse teas can be at that time, I just fell in love with everything. I was spending like thousands of dollars a year on tea. So I'm like, if I'm going to spend so much money, I might as well, get high on my own supply. And now I do. So it's great.
So I'm so curious about how you got started as a businesswoman, because I feel like there's so many misconceptions about women in business. And then you have the added layer of being a Black woman and you're a person with a disability. So did you find that you were facing sort of misconceptions or unfair judgments, and how did you overcome them?
Oh, absolutely. I have always felt like the underdog in my entrepreneurial journey. I still feel like I am. And it's because when you think of a business person, an entrepreneur, probably the first thought you come to when you close your eyes is like, okay, white male. And then even if you start going down the, different categories, you're like, okay, white male, white female, black female, then, probably LGBTQ, white, black. And then when you start really whittling it down, being Black, female, disabled is like at the bottom. Like, I don't even think it's like a thought that crosses somebody's mind. And even me, when I would close my eyes and think of a disabled business owner, I would struggle before my entrepreneurial journey. Now I've met quite a few, but so not having that representation for myself, it's really hard to do things and be someone when you haven't seen it. But I just had this really strong belief within myself that if there was not someone in the room that looked like me, I could be the first, and then I could open that door and let others in with me and bring us up to the table, because we are capable, we are worthy of the space, we are bosses, and we deserve the same recognition as everyone else. So that was always my mindset going into it. I'm like, I knew that a lot of people would underestimate me, but if I showed up authentically, and I also knew that our product was so bomb that you couldn't deny how great cup of tea was,
Of course, why not be the first person in the room? And it sounded like in this journey, it kind of sounds like you were also evolving and changing your ideas of what it meant to be part of the disability community too.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of the things that was so difficult for me is like, which I haven't really admitted, I don't know if I've ever really admitted this online, but when I first had my accident, like, I did not want anything to do with the disability community. I did not want you to say that I was disabled. I would see other people in rehab in wheelchairs. I'm like, that's them. That's not me. Even though, like, here I am pushing my wheelchair. Like, I don't know who that is. That's not me. That's not my journey. That's not my community. I am over here. I'm different. And the truth of the matter is, I started to see a shift in myself and find more of a happiness in myself when I just like accepted it for what it is. Like, yes, I'm part of this community. Let's make this community better. And it will be better because I can help, use my experiences and use the fact that I was both able-bodied and disabled to be empathetic to people who don't understand our journey, but also encouraging to acknowledge their privileges and how we can make this world more equal for everyone. And I think once I made that shift in mindset, I started making friends who are in wheelchairs and learning things from these, specifically women, learning things from women, like how to date, is that even possible? Like how to accept your body, how to move forward. And I wouldn't have been able to find those answers. Like I said, I love my friends to death, but they didn't have those answers for me because they didn't live that experience. And only when I was able to open myself up to my own community did I find people who understood me and would help me to grow.
It's so powerful to hear about how you have really thought about yourself and how you've been able to evolve, and it's been able to change the way that you think of a community that you are now part of, and you're now this vocal advocate for, and you're a big representation for. The reason why I discovered you was through your TikTok, and I think that that's where you've done, well, I think that's one place where you've done such an amazing job of really raising awareness and showing people who might have never considered the disability community how we can be more inclusive and how we can make things more accessible. So can you tell people a bit about what you do on TikTok and your restaurant reviews and how all of this really started?
It all started because I have always been a very social person, even post-accident. Like, you would still find my friends and I going out, having fun times, having a drink or two, out and about. And I've always loved my city, but I would always run into issues where I would look up online a place, because like when you have a wheelchair, you have to look up a location before you go out. I don't have the privilege of just being like, oh, like let's go to XYZ restaurant and just show up. Like I have to call or check online to make sure that I can even get in, because so many places in Toronto and around the world are not accessible. And I would often look up these places. They would say they're accessible online, or I call, they said, yes, we are. And then I show up. There's 5 stairs to get in with no ramp. They're accessible to get in, but they don't have a washroom stall. So I have to hold it the entire time that I'm there, limit what I'm drinking so that I don't have to go to the washroom. And it's just like, I go so sick and tired. And my friends, when I would find ourselves going to the same 3 restaurants over and over again because it was safe. Like we knew that they were tried and true. And I was missing out on so much of the world. And so my friends and I were like, why don't we just start being more adventurous? COVID hit. We hadn't seen each other forever. And we're like, we want to go back out, but let's go out this time and document this journey. And so that we can raise awareness and people could be like, oh, I see it. I see why this is important. Because sometimes just hearing about it doesn't make a difference. But when people can visually see me roll up to a place that says it's accessible and not get in because of stairs, and they're seeing it with their eyes, it's for whatever reason 20 times more impactful. And that's kind of where Access by Tay was born. And now I review restaurants and pretty much anything, like anywhere I'm going, I'll review. But I think it's even grown beyond that to just raise awareness for disability and have topics and discussions that most people don't really talk about in the disability community.
I've learned so much from everything you've shared. So thank you for opening my eyes and helping me to become more aware. There's so many things I have had the privilege to never even think about. Like, is there enough space between the tables for a wheelchair to move around? Or if there is a wave to open or a button, can you actually access it? Or is there something blocking the way? Is there a mistake that is most common in Toronto restaurants?
I think the thing that gets messed up the most is definitely washrooms. They'll like, God, there's just so many different issues that come with the washrooms. Oftentimes, like the stall is just so small that like even the average sized person would have issues getting in it. And I'm like, okay, how do you expect a wheelchair to go in, turn around? And it just boggles my mind how during the construction process, none of these are taken into consideration. Or even when places go and do renovations, Like that is not a consideration in a renovation. So it's very frustrating. And beyond that, I think it's just also the fact that a lot of places have stairs to get, like steps. And even if it's one step, people will always say to me, oh, we can lift you. I'm like, you can't lift a 350-pound chair. It's not safe for you. It's not safe for me. And it's just not a kind of easy thing to do. And it's so easily fixed with a portable ramp that can cost less than like $150. And I'm like, how are you not investing in this? Like you would open up your world to not only people in wheelchairs, but like moms with strollers, like old people. How are you not thinking that this is important? But it's not important until it becomes people's reality. So I think me showing up and maybe putting places a little bit on blast will make it their reality, because I have a very, very, very passionate audience who rallies hard. So I'm very lucky for that.
Okay, yeah, because since you are celebrating some places and putting other places on blast, how have restaurant owners responded to you? Has anybody reached out to you?
I think the first restaurant that I reviewed that went really poorly, I think it was like my fourth or fifth video. It went viral, like 1.5 million views in like 3 days. And for a restaurant, that is a lot of views and a lot of feedback coming at them hard. And the issue I had with that place was that it said it was accessible, and I had shown up, and the washroom had a step to go. And it was for a friend's birthday, so I had planned this whole day around this. And I couldn't even go to the washroom, and I had to go so badly that I literally had to leave. Like, I couldn't even stay for a drink because I thought that I would get there, go to the washroom first. Like, it just wasn't even a thought, because I'm like, I can go. And they had a lot of people, attack them online. And the owner had called me, and we had a conversation, and I said, I had no idea that this would happen, because again, I was only like 5 videos in. But I also told them the importance of why people were reaching out was because it was disappointing, and it was a very, very disheartening experience. And they expressed that they would do their best to, in the future, change the restaurant. And now, since that experience, what I do, if I have a bad experience at a restaurant that is significant, if I don't bring it up to management there, if they're not there while I'm there, I email them and I tell them, hey, these are my experiences. I'm going to post a review. Would love to hear your feedback and include it, because I don't want to shock you and I don't want my audience to do that. So is there anything you'd like to say that I can include in the video? And I try to give them that opportunity to give me a response. And I've had responses that have been great. Specifically, this restaurant called Miss Things. It was like Hawaiian restaurant, and the washroom was just not accessible at all. And the sink wasn't working because it was very clear that they were using it as a storage closet. And immediately when I emailed them, they emailed me back, sent me pictures that they had fixed certain things in the restaurant already and had made a commitment to do better. And the feedback from the audience were like, I will now go support this place because they handled this appropriately. And they messaged me back to be like, we've had so many people come in and say that they came because of your review, even though I had given them a low review on accessibility. But because they had such a good response, people were like, we will continue to support you. And that's all I want. And I try to come from a very positive place, even if I'm giving a bad review, because I understand that like it'll take time for people to change and make the changes necessary.
Yeah, I feel like you're being very generous with them, because you have your hat as somebody who is a person with disabilities and then somebody who's also a business owner. So I feel like the approach that you've given has been very fair, where it's, hey, we're all learning. Here's some information, and if you want to improve, you can. And I think that means that you're being a wonderful member of the community with that approach.
Yeah, I don't think that's what I always say. Like, I feel so bad sometimes. Like, I just went to a restaurant the other day and it was so good. The food was amazing. Staff service incredible. I'm editing it right now. And the washroom was horrible. Like, horrible. And I just remember I texted my friends. I'm like, guys, I want to get this place a phenomenal review. And I feel so conflicted. But in order to continue to be authentic, I have to, give an authentic review of the accessibility. But it's really difficult when I have those experiences. But I hope it's an opportunity for them to learn, because you guys would be like kicking it out of the park. And I oftentimes I will go back to places even if they haven't made changes yet, because they've made a commitment to do so in the future. So it's not always easy, especially because I love so many places. But yeah, I just hope that they understand and coming from a good place and a place of education, because accessibility, everybody should be able to access places equally, like, period,
Completely. And it gives them more opportunity to be more successful as a business too. Because as you said, accessibility is not just about people who are in wheelchairs. It really opens up the business to so many other people who just need other types of accommodations. So you're doing them a favor, to be perfectly honest.
I am in the long run. I'm like, I know it sucks right now, but I'm like, it'll help your business in the long run. Like, it really will. Like, it really will. So sorry, but not sorry. Like, and also, like, if you're just not accessible, don't say that you are, because I will never show up to a place that says they're not accessible. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not, because otherwise I could make a video every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I only show up if you say you're accessible, and you cannot say you're accessible if you're not. It's misleading. So I wouldn't have been there if you didn't say it.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like, just be honest. So earlier, I heard you describe yourself as an underdog. So do you have any advice for anyone who feels like they have so much going for them, but then they're still facing obstacle after obstacle? What advice do you have for them?
Being an underdog is it's kind of like it's kind of your superpower. At the end of the day, nobody wants to root for someone who has it all. And so I think when you are an underdog, you actually have that kind of advantage, because as much as it might feel like an isolating situation, there are so many people who can relate to you and your story. I never thought that, even though like I was a gymnast and now I'm paralyzed, like there are so many people who relate to so many different aspects of my story and root for me because of it. And so as much as it feels, like I said, like an isolating thing, whatever struggles you're going through, there's someone out there who understands that journey and can root you on. And so use your underdogness to, that's not a word, but use your underdogness to propel you to become a superhero for someone else in your life, if not for yourself. And that's what I've always done. I'm like, okay, this is my reality. I'm going to use it to make a difference in every aspect of my life and hopefully in the lives of others. And I think I've been able to do that. So very, very grateful that my mindset is like that, because otherwise I would just sit here and it just would suck, every day would suck. But I have significant more good days and bad days because of the way I think I approach life.
You are the best at playing with whatever hand you are dealt.
I know, I should be pretty good at poker, right? Like you would think that I am, but I actually suck at it. I definitely try to look at the cards that are in front of me and be like, okay, what are we going to do with this? And make the most of it.
Okay, before we wrap, I want to play a very low stakes game. Speaking of games.
Ooh, I love a game.
Okay, so it's kind of like Marry F Kill, except I want to talk about restaurants because I know you're a big foodie. So instead of Marry F Kill, it's dine in, take out, or skip. So I'll give you 3 kinds of restaurants.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one. So a Chuck E. Cheese versus a teppanyaki table versus a tiki bar.
Ooh, okay. So I have so many traumatic memories from Chuck E. Cheese. Like, just like every time I went there as a child, Chucky would terrify me. So I think I'm gonna skip Chuck E. Cheese only because of the trauma. What were the other 2 options?
So a teppanyaki table or a tiki bar.
I Depending if the tiki bar is owned by someone who is Polynesian, I would dine in. But otherwise, I would take out and I would dine in at the teppanyaki. I think specifically with Polynesian, I have made the decision that tiki bars I will only go to if they're authentically owned, because that was actually a piece of feedback I got when I did review a place that was a tiki bar that was not owned by someone who was Polynesian. And so I'm like listening to my audience and I'm like, hey, I learned something. I get it. I don't want to ever, help promote something that's cultural appropriation. So yeah, that's kind of like a lesson learned, and those would be my choices.
Oh, thank you. I just learned a lesson too. I never thought of that. So thank you. Thank you to you, and thank you to your audience.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like, I learn something new every day on TikTok, honestly, and it's great.
Okay, the second one. So a restaurant that's all vegan, a restaurant that's all bacon, or a restaurant where there's an insect in every dish. And it's not like, but it's not like infested with cockroaches, but it's like a place where insects are like a delicacy, like eating a grasshopper that's cooked.
Yikes. Okay. Okay. So, again, being a childhood Survivor fan, one of the things that scared me the most about the show was A, the possibility of having to eat insects, and B, water. So with that said, I think I would have to skip the insects as much as it's great. And the other two, I would dine out with the vegan and I would dine in with bacon. I love bacon. So yeah.
I love bacon. I feel like it's my favorite food. And confirming, I never ate a bug on Survivor.
Very lucky. There were so many seasons when they would like have to do that. I'm like, oh my God, I could not do that. My God.
There was one woman on my tribe. She made a point of it. She just wanted to try eating as many different bugs as she could. And sometimes she would eat one and then just her insides would not feel good. So I stayed away from the bugs. So I don't blame you for that.
And that is why you are a winner. Okay? Smart decisions.
Okay, the last one. So a restaurant where they dance for you, a restaurant where they sing to you, or a restaurant where they're purposely mean to you.
Oh, like that diner. So I'm gonna skip the diner themes. I think I know what you're talking about, where they're mean to you, because I wanted to experience that, but I found out they're coming to Toronto and it is not going to be an accessible place. So we're going to skip that.
So they're just mean before you even get there.
They're just mean. They just are mean from the jump, So we're going to skip. And then, like karaoke type of singing?
No, it's like where they're real performers and they fully have a set and they have their repertoire of songs.
I love music, so I think I'm going to dine in at the singing and dine out with the dancing. Unless it was like Magic Mike style, but otherwise I'll dine out. But I love music so much, so I'm like, maybe I'll dine in.
Okay, so we're going to skip the diner that's coming to Toronto, whatever, but this is the public call out. Please bring a Magic Mike style diner to Toronto because Taylor will be there.
And I will give you the best review. Like, I will. I promise. Like,
it doesn't matter how good the food is. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at that point. Like, sometimes the experience is all you need. Okay. Love you, Magic Mike.
Taylor, it was so good chatting with you. It was so good meeting you. I feel like the time has just flown by. Can you tell everybody where they can find you and what you're doing next?
Okay, so what am I doing next? I think I'm just going to continue to expand my TikTok, and just my whole goal with Access by Tay is to show an accessible life. So that means restaurants, that means travel, events, and also just deep dives and talks about any and everything. So you will see me anywhere and everywhere and talking about everything on my TikTok, Access by Tay. And I am Access by Tay on all of the things. ACCESS by BYTAY, TikTok, Instagram, pretty much the only two I use. So
Awesome. I can't wait to see what you do next. I can't wait to see your next review. And thank you for making me cry on the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I am geeking out. I'm about to call my cousin immediately afterwards and be like, she's as nice as I thought she was going to be. So thank you so much for having me. This is very insane for me, and I hope to see you in person one day.
Yes, I was going to say I would love to meet you in person one day. We should figure that out. I'm sorry I wasn't there at the party, but I would love to meet you.
Absolutely. We'll make it happen.